Hello, my amazing Algebra Half students. This is Mrs. A, and I love math. Today, we are back with Lesson 95 in Addition 2 and Lesson 93 in Addition 3. I think I explained to you that my granddaughter Hannah has Addition 3 and I am teaching out of Addition 2. So I have coordinated the lessons in the two books. So hopefully that will help you. But the big thing is the title is Order of Division. So you can always look up the lesson by the title because I try to post the titles on every lesson that I do for you, no matter which edition you're using. Okay, so now we are doing the order of division, and this is part of what we call PEMDAS as you get farther in algebra. And PEMDAS, let me write it right, P-E-M-D-A-S. You're going to hear PEMDAS a lot as you go through algebra. And PEMDAS is simply what's called the order of operations. And we're just doing a small part of the order of operations today. This says parentheses, exponents, multiplication and division, and then addition and subtraction. Now, we have not worked much with the exponent part here yet. So we have talked about parentheses, brackets, braces, absolute values. All of these are things that would go under the P for parenthesis because they're all of our grouping symbols. We always have to do a grouping symbol first, don't we? And we've done some of that. We haven't done a whole bunch with exponents yet. We will. That's the second step in order of operations. The third step is to do any of your multiplication and division as you go from left to right, and then any addition and subtraction as you go from left to right. And PEMDAS is easy to remember if you remember this tricky little phrase. Please excuse my dear Aunt Sally. That's the one that I had when I was younger, and I've heard other ones, but you can find a little tricky, catchy phrase to remember, PEMDAS, and I just use please excuse my dear Aunt Sally, but there are others, okay? So today we're talking about this little part right here, and in the general order of operations, we're always going to move left to right. So we would do our parentheses, brackets, braces. We would do them left to right. And then when we're inside them, we work inside out. We've talked about that before. The exponents, we would do those left to right. Multiplication and division, we do those as we move left to right, just like we read. A sentence is left to right. We read a mathematical sentence that way too. And then addition and subtraction is left to right. So here today we're talking about this little part right here, multiplication and division. As we move left to right, we will attack those first. We will accomplish the multiplications and divisions before we even try to do the additions and subtractions. Okay, so that is our order of operations. And now here's our first little problem here. Okay, it's kind of a big problem, isn't it? So we're going to start moving left to right across the board. So as we move left to right, we see a division, a multiplication, a minus, a multiplication, and an addition. And what we're learning today is that all of the divisions and multiplications are at the same rank, but they are all at a higher rank than additions and subtractions are. So we're going to skip over those and do all of the divisions and multiplications left to right first. So 32 divided by 2 is a division, and it's going to be 16. And then 16 times 4 minus 3.5 plus 2, since I'm doing this all in order for you. Okay, and next we have a multiplication, which we will do because it's a higher order of operations. So 16 times 4 is 64, minus 3 times 5 plus 2. And lastly, here, look, we're going to have to skip over the minus and go to the next multiplication. So that's 3 times 5. And so we'll have 64 minus 15 plus 2. And now notice all I have left is addition and subtraction. So now I'm going to proceed left to right. 64 take away 15. Okay, so we're going to have to borrow one here, rename. 14 minus 5 is 9. 5 minus 1 is 4. 49 plus 2 is 51. Now, that's pretty easy, isn't it? Just do all the multiplication and divisions first, and we get 51. Okay, here's our first example. Now, it's a little bit bigger problem, isn't it? So, on the last one that we did not have this big division symbol. This is a fraction bar, isn't it? And we did not have that in the last problem. What do we do now? Okay, when we have a fraction bar where we have part of the problem on the top and part of the problem on the bottom, and then we have to divide, we're going to simplify all of the numerator and simplify all of the denominator, and then we're going to divide at the very end. So when we're doing the numerator, now you know that I don't like to copy things over and over and over again because I might make a mistake. So we're going to chat about it, and I'm just going to write it once and not 20 million times, okay? So let's look up here. I'm going to erase this just so I have a little bit more room here. I'll go ahead and take all that off. And we'll simplify the top part above the problem. All right, so now, please excuse my dear Aunt Sally. 3 minus 7 is in a parenthesis, isn't it? So we're going to have to do that first. 3 minus 7 is the same thing as 3 plus a negative 7, which is a negative 4. So we're just going to put a negative 4 right there on top, and we've already taken care of that guy. All right, so now we've got a 4 minus a negative 4, but that's a subtraction. That's a plus. There's a times. So we have to do that first, don't we? So 3 times 2 is 6. Okay, so now let's look at what we have. We have 4 minus a negative 4 plus a 6 plus a 6. And everything is either subtraction or addition. So now we're ready to start left to right and just finish the whole thing. We had to jump out of sequence to do this, and we have to jump out of sequence to do that because it's more important than the addition and subtraction. So now it's a higher order, and so now we're going to go back. What is 4 take away a negative 4? Now we're moving left to right. 4 take away a negative 4. Remember, subtraction is addition of the opposite, so that's the same as a 4 plus 4, isn't it? And 4 plus 4 is 8. So we have 8, and then plus 6 is 14 plus 6 is 20. Now notice, when I have addition, and everything's addition, I can do it in any order, can't I? 6 plus 6 is 12, plus 8 is 20. It's the same thing. So I have 20 in the numerator. And then, so I'm going to put this right here, is equal to 20 divided by, now we're going to do the denominator. Okay, so we have negative 4 minus 1 in our parenthesis. And negative 4 minus 1 is the same as negative 4 plus a negative 1. Same sign, add, take the common sign. We get a negative 5. 2 times a negative 5 is a negative 10. So now we're going to put a negative 10 right there. And lastly, we're going to do our whole division, which was our fraction bar. And we're going to get 20 divided by negative 10 is a negative 2. So negative 2 was our final answer. Okay, I'm going to let you look at the board a little bit before we move on to example 2. Okay, this is our last example problem, and then we'll do a practice problem. Then we'll be done with this lesson. All right, so here we look at the top. We look at the bottom, and then we'll put them together at the end. So we look up here, and I should have written it, had some space up there, but we'll go ahead and come down here and do a little bit of simplification of the numerator. I have to do my parentheses first, don't I? So this parenthesis right here is a -1, isn't it? Because it's addition of opposite signs. So we subtract them and take the sign of the greater. So a -1. So we're just going to write 6 times -1 minus, and now let's do this one here. We have a -2 minus a 6. They're both moving to the left on the number line. That's a -8, isn't it? So we'll just go ahead and put -8 and then times 2. So we simplified it a little bit. So now we're going to simplify it again. We're going to finish our numerator, and then we'll go back up and do our denominator. Okay, so now finishing our numerator, we have 6. This is a multiplication. This is a minus. This is a multiplication. So we're going to do what? -6 and then minus a -16. So we do all of our multiplication before we touch our subtraction. So now we have a -6 minus a -16, but we know that subtraction is addition of the opposite. And we're going to get 16 plus a -6 is a 10. So our numerator is 10. So we'll just come over here. Since we know the whole thing is going to be a fraction, we'll write 10 over what? Okay, we don't know what that is now. So now let's go up to our denominator. And our denominator is a little simpler, isn't it? So all we have to do is what? 2 times a -4. 2 minus 4. 2 minus 4. Okay, so I'm going to have 3 times 2 minus 4 is a -2. And 3 times a -2 is a -6. So isn't our denominator -6? So I'm going to come over here where I have some room and put our -6. So now I'm ready to simplify that fraction. A 10 and a 6 both have a 2. So I'm going to take a 2 out of both, dividing both by 2. And remember, we don't like to leave minus signs in the denominator. We want to move the minus sign upstairs or in front. So we're just going to make it in front. Negative, divide by 2, 5, divide by 2, 3, and -5/3 is my final answer. -5/3. So that is our last example, and now we're ready to do a practice problem. Does everybody see it? Copy it down. Get your examples down, because you might need to follow your examples when you're doing a problem, right? Okay, so this is our practice problem. Copy it down very carefully, and then pause your video. I want you to try it by yourself first. Okay, hopefully you did that. Hopefully you already have your answer, but let's see what it is. We're going to do the numerator, and then the denominator, and then we're going to divide because of the fraction bar. In our numerator, we have a parenthesis, so we must do that first. So we're going to say 2 minus 5 is a -3. Okay, and then we've got 6 minus the -3 plus, now remember, I don't do the minus right now. So since I don't do the minus, I'm going to skip over here to the first multiplication that I see. So 4 times 2 is 8 plus 3. Okay, so I took care of this because that's parenthesis. That's the highest order. And then I looked to see what else was a high order. 4 times 2, and I put it here. So now everything is in the same order of operations, which is addition or subtraction. They're at the same rank. So I'm going to do those left to right. So 6 minus a -3 is the same thing as addition of the opposite. 6 plus 3 is 9. And then 9 plus 8 is 17. And 17 plus 3 is 20. So I have a 20 on my numerator. 20 on my numerator for my answer. And now we're ready to do, we'll just put it up here so we remember it. 20 is this one. And then on the bottom, the denominator, we just have a small amount to do, but we must do the parenthesis first. -1 minus 1, they're both moving to the left, so we're going to, -1 minus 1 is -2, and -2 times 2 is -4. So our denominator is -4, therefore, our entire answer will be 20 divided by -4. Positive divided by negative is a negative. 20 divided by 4 is 5. So hopefully you got a -5 for your practice problem. There's the work. And we are done with lesson 95, 93, depending on which book you're in. And this is Mrs. A, and may God bless your day.